The year was 1975. The place, a seemingly idyllic Long Island suburb, but behind the facade of normalcy, a cold dread was about to grip the nation. At 112 Ocean Avenue, a large, gambrel-roofed Dutch colonial house stood silent, its dark windows staring blankly out at the world. Unbeknownst to the unsuspecting community, a darkness had taken root within its walls, a malignancy that would soon seep out and stain the very fabric of reality. The house at Amityville was no stranger to tragedy. A year prior, it had borne witness to a gruesome and inexplicable crime. 6 members of the DeFeo family brutally murdered in their sleep. The killer? Their own flesh and blood, a young man named Ronald DeFeo Jr. His chilling confession sent shockwaves through the community. He claimed voices inside the house, insidious whispers, had driven him to commit the unspeakable. The house stood empty, shrouded in whispers and shadowed by suspicion. Locals spoke of a chilling presence, a coldness that clung to the property. The very air around 112 Ocean Avenue seemed to crackle with an unspoken dread. It was as if the evil that had been unleashed within its walls had seeped into the foundation, the walls, the very air itself. Despite the horrifying events that had transpired, the house at Amityville didn't remain vacant for long. Perhaps it was naivete, or maybe desperation for a fresh start, that led the Lutz family to its doorstep. George and Kathy Lutz, along with their 3 young children, saw past the whispers, past the chilling history, and saw only a beautiful home, a place to rebuild their lives. They were a young family, full of hope and dreams, blissfully unaware of the nightmare that awaited them. The Lutz family arrived on a crisp December day, the moving van a beacon of optimism against the backdrop of the imposing house. They were eager to settle in, to make this house their home. But from the moment they crossed the threshold, a palpable unease settled over them. The air inside was heavy, stagnant, as if the house itself was holding its breath. Doors creaked open and slammed shut seemingly of their own accord. Unexplained noises echoed through the empty halls. A cloying, sickly, sweet odor like that of decomposing flowers permeated the air. The children, sensitive to the unseen forces at play, were the first to voice their fear. They spoke of unseen presences, of whispers in the dark, of cold spots that followed them from room to room. At first, George and Kathy Lutz dismissed their children's fears as childish imagination. It was understandable, they reasoned, for the children to be unsettled in a new home, especially one with such a tragic past. But as the days turned into weeks, the strange occurrences intensified, becoming too frequent, too disturbing to ignore. The darkness that had claimed the DeFeo family was stirring once more, its tendrils of fear reaching out to ensnare the unsuspecting Lutz family. George, a pragmatic man, found himself plagued by nightmares. He would wake in a cold sweat, his heart pounding in his chest, the feeling of unseen eyes upon him lingering long after he had opened his eyes. He became increasingly irritable, prone to fits of rage, his personality seemingly warping under an unseen pressure. The house was changing him, twisting him into something dark and unfamiliar. Kathy, a devout Catholic, began to experience vivid hallucinations. She saw shadowy figures lurking in the periphery of her vision, felt unseen hands brush against her skin. The house was alive with unseen entities whispering to her, taunting her, their voices growing stronger with each passing day. The family was trapped, ensnared in a web of terror they never could have imagined. To understand the horror that awaited the Lutz family, we must delve into the chilling events at 112 Ocean Avenue. It began on a cold November night in 1974. The DeFeo family harboured dark secrets. Ronald DeFeo Sr., known as Butch, was abusive, his temper striking fear into his family. Louise, his wife, bore the brunt of his rage. The DeFeo children lived in constant fear. Butch's temper was unpredictable and brutal. Ronald Jr. tried to protect his siblings. He became withdrawn and erratic. The once happy family portrait masked the terror within their home. As darkness fell, an evil brewed inside 112 Ocean Avenue. The air crackled with unseen energy. At 3:15 a.m., Ronald Jr. unleashed his fury. 6 shots rang out, sealing the DeFeo family's fate. Butch and Louise DeFeo died instantly, their bodies riddled with bullets. Ronald Jr.'s rampage continued. He moved methodically, his rifle spitting fire and death. Down the hallway, past the flickering glow of a nightlight, lay his younger siblings. Dawn, 18, her dreams extinguished in a spray of bullets. Allison, 13, her innocence shattered by gunfire. Mark, 12, silenced by a single shot. John Matthew, 9, riddled with bullets as he slept. The massacre was swift, brutal and inexplicable. Neighbours heard nothing, only muffled pops of the rifle. The house conspired to keep its secrets. Police arrived to unimaginable carnage. The DeFeo family lay in their beds, riddled with bullets. The stench of gunpowder and death hung heavy. Ronald Jr. confessed to the murders. His confession was no ordinary admission. He spoke of insidious whispers urging him to kill. The investigation into the DeFeo murders was baffling and horrifying. Ronald Jr.'s claims of demonic possession were met with skepticism. The brutality and efficiency of the murders defied explanation. Oddities couldn't be explained away. Victims were found lying peacefully, undisturbed, no signs of struggle or defense. It was as if they were frozen in place. The lack of motive deepened the mystery. Ronald Jr. had no history of mental illness. Some whispered of a family curse. Others spoke of a malevolent entity within 112 Ocean Avenue. The truth remained elusive, shrouded in shadow and speculation. The DeFeo murders became a morbid legend, a cautionary tale of lurking evil. As the sun began its descent, casting long, eerie shadows across the lawn, the Lutz family gathered for their first meal in their new home. During dinner, the phone rang. George answered it, surprised. A gruff, unfamiliar voice asked for someone George didn't know. The voice grew louder, more insistent, until it dissolved into threats. George hung up, his family concerned. That night, strange occurrences continued. Doors creaked open and slammed shut. A sickly, sweet odour wafted through the house. The children huddled in fear. Kathy tried to soothe them with prayers, but a dark, insidious presence lingered. A GAP 7S. As the days turned into nights, the Lutz family's ordeal grew more harrowing. The children, especially young Melissa, seemed particularly affected. One evening, as the family gathered in the living room, Melissa began to cry uncontrollably. Her tiny frame shook with fear as she pointed towards the staircase. "Mummy, there's a monster up there," she whimpered. Kathy and George exchanged worried glances. They had heard her speak of the man in the corner before, but this was different. George, trying to calm his daughter, walked towards the staircase. The air grew colder with each step. He felt a presence, something malevolent, watching him. "There's nothing there, sweetheart," he called back, his voice trembling slightly. But Melissa's cries only grew louder. Kathy held her daughter close, whispering words of comfort. But deep down she felt the same dread. The house was no longer just a house. It had become a living, breathing entity feeding off their fear. That night, Melissa refused to sleep alone. She clung to Kathy, her small hands gripping tightly. Shadows danced on the walls, and the whispers grew louder. The Lutz family realized that their nightmare was far from over. The following days brought no respite from the unsettling events. Objects moved on their own, as if manipulated by unseen hands. Whispers and disembodied voices echoed through the hallways, taunting them. The children, their innocence shattered, became withdrawn, their laughter silenced. George, his pragmatic nature shaken, tried to find logical explanations. The house was alive, pulsating with an unseen energy. Kathy, her faith tested, sought solace in prayer. She sprinkled holy water, hung crucifixes, desperately trying to protect her family. One evening, Melissa pointed to a dark corner, her eyes wide with terror. "Mummy," she whispered, "there's a man in the corner." Kathy's heart lurched in her chest. She followed her daughter's gaze, but saw nothing but shadows. "There's no one there, honey," she said, trying to sound reassuring. "But Mummy," Melissa insisted, "he's looking at me." The Lutz family found themselves caught in a terrifying spiral of escalating paranormal activity. The house was changing them, eroding their sanity. George became irritable, prone to fits of rage. Kathy was plagued by nightmares and hallucinations. The children retreated into themselves, their laughter replaced by silence. Daniel began sleepwalking, his eyes vacant. Christopher clung to his mother, trembling with terror. Melissa began talking to unseen companions. The house had become a prison, trapping them in a nightmare. The darkness that claimed the DeFeo family was stirring once more. The horrors within those walls promised to escalate beyond their wildest nightmares. Days grew colder and the strange occurrences escalated. The house's warmth was replaced by an oppressive chill. The air clung to their skin like icy fingers. The temperature fluctuated wildly, defying explanation. George suspected they were not alone. Something was watching them, its presence growing stronger. One evening, George felt a cold draft on his neck. He turned, heart pounding, but saw nothing. The room was empty, the only sound the crackling fire. He tried to dismiss it, but the feeling persisted. Later, Kathy felt a cold spot settle over her feet. It spread quickly, enveloping her in an icy embrace. She gasped and pulled the blankets tight. Her heart pounded in the silence. She reached for George, but he was sound asleep. She envied his obliviousness. She closed her eyes, but the cold persisted. As the nights wore on, a pattern began to emerge. It was always at night, in the darkest hours, that the activity intensified. Footsteps echoed through the empty halls, heavy and deliberate. Doors creaked open and slammed shut with a violence that shook the house. The children awoke screaming, their small bodies trembling with terror. George, drawn to the basement, felt a presence watching him. Kathy began to experience vivid hallucinations, shadowy figures lurking. The entity fed on their fear, growing stronger with each terrified gasp. The tension in the house reached a fever pitch. The paranormal activity became increasingly aggressive. One night, George felt a cold hand grip his ankle. He gasped, jolting upright, heart pounding. The room was dark, lit only by moonlight. He strained to see, but saw nothing. He reached for the lamp, hand trembling. The light revealed nothing unusual, but the dread remained. He felt the entity's oppressive presence. Then he saw it, glowing red eyes. The eyes were cold and malevolent. George stared back, wide with terror. Time stood still, his body frozen. Then the eyes vanished, leaving only the scent of sulphur. The days that followed George's encounter with the red-eyed entity were a blur of escalating horror. Sleep became a distant memory, replaced by a constant state of heightened anxiety and dread. The house pulsed with unseen energy, a malevolent presence that pressed in on them from all sides. The air grew thick with the stench of decay, a sickly sweet odour that clung to their clothes and hair. George, once a pillar of strength, found himself teetering on the brink of madness. The nightmares grew more vivid, blending seamlessly with his waking hours. He became increasingly withdrawn, his once warm eyes now cold and distant. Kathy, her faith shaken, clung desperately to the remnants of her sanity. She spent hours on her knees, her prayers a desperate plea for deliverance. But the entity delighted in her torment, mocking her pleas with unseen whispers. The children, their innocence shattered, retreated further into themselves. Daniel, his sleepwalking episodes increasing, wandered the halls at night, his eyes vacant. Christopher, his small body racked with sobs, clung to his mother's side. And Missy, her sweet face now a mask of fear, whispered to her unseen companion. The final night at 112 Ocean Avenue began like all the others, shrouded in an oppressive darkness. A fierce storm raged outside, mirroring the turmoil within the hearts of the terrified family. The wind howled, rattling the windows and sending shivers down their spines. Rain lashed down, blurring the world outside into an indistinguishable grey mass. George paced the living room, his mind a battlefield of fear and despair. He could feel the entity's presence growing stronger with each passing moment. He knew they could not stay in the house any longer. They woke the children, their voices hushed, their movements frantic as they gathered a few essential belongings. There was no time for packing, no time for goodbyes. They fled into the storm, their car a small island of light in a sea of swirling darkness. Rain lashed down, blurring their vision, the wind screaming its fury as if in pursuit. As they sped away from 112 Ocean Avenue, the house loomed large in their rearview mirror, its dark windows like vacant eyes, watching them, mocking their escape. News of the Lutz family's ordeal spread, igniting a media frenzy that brought Amityville under the national spotlight. Skeptics scoffed, dismissing their claims as a hoax. Amidst fear and skepticism, Ed and Lorraine Warren arrived at Ocean Avenue. Together they formed a formidable team, their faith and expertise their weapons against darkness. What they found was a truth far more terrifying than they could have imagined. Section 2. Unholy Ground. Ed meticulously documented their investigation, capturing EVPs and photographing cold spots. He witnessed objects moving on their own. The Warrens uncovered a dark history at 112 Ocean Avenue. The house was built on a Native American burial ground, a place of ancient evils. Tragedies befell previous occupants, now seen in a sinister light. The house was a magnet for darkness, a conduit for evil. The Warrens pieced together a horrifying truth. The house was haunted by a legion of dark forces. It was a vortex of negative energy, a gateway to darkness. The Warrens' investigation sent shockwaves through the small town of Amityville. What had once been a quiet, idyllic community was now forever linked to the horrors that had transpired at 112 Ocean Avenue. The house, once a symbol of suburban tranquility, became an object of morbid fascination, drawing curiosity seekers and thrill seekers from far and wide. But for the residents of Amityville, the Warrens' findings were a chilling confirmation of their worst fears. The evil that had haunted the Lutz family was not confined to the walls of 112 Ocean Avenue. It had seeped into the very fabric of their town, casting a long dark shadow over their lives. The town was divided. Some dismissed the Warrens' findings as sensationalism, a desperate attempt to capitalize on the tragedy. Others, haunted by their own unexplained experiences, whispered of a town cursed, forever marked by the darkness that had been unleashed at 112 Ocean Avenue. The Amityville horror, as it came to be known, transcended the boundaries of a single house, a single family's ordeal. It became a cultural phenomenon, a cautionary tale whispered around campfires and late-night sleepovers, a chilling reminder that evil can lurk in the most unexpected of places, waiting for the right moment to rear its ugly head. In the years since the Lutz family's harrowing ordeal, the Amityville house has become a macabre tourist destination, drawing curiosity seekers and paranormal enthusiasts from around the world. The house has changed hands numerous times, each new owner hoping to escape the shadow of its dark past, only to be confronted by the chilling reality that some places are forever marked by the horrors they have witnessed. The Amityville horror has inspired countless books, documentaries, and feature films, each attempting to unravel the truth behind the legend, to separate fact from fiction in the tangled web of claims and counterclaims that surround the case. But the truth, like the house itself, remains elusive, shrouded in shadow and speculation. Whether one believes in the paranormal or dismisses it as the stuff of nightmares, the Amityville horror continues to fascinate and terrify, its enduring power a testament to our primal fear of the unknown. It stands as a chilling reminder that some doors are best left unopened, some secrets best left buried, and some places forever marked by the darkness that resides within their walls. The legacy of the Amityville horror is a tapestry woven from fear, fascination, and the enduring human need to make sense of the unexplainable. It is a story that continues to haunt our collective consciousness, a chilling reminder that even in the bright light of day, darkness lurks at the edges of our vision, waiting for the right moment to claim us all. The Amityville horror, much like the house itself, continues to cast a long shadow. Was it truly a demonic haunting, an evil so potent it could drive a family from their home in terror? Or was it, as some suggest, a clever fabrication, a story spun for fame or profit, its truth distorted and amplified by the whispers of a terrified public? The answer, like the house itself, remains shrouded in shadow, a mystery that continues to fascinate and terrify in equal measure. The evidence is contradictory, the witnesses unreliable, their memories tainted by fear and the passage of time. Was Ronald DeFeo Jr. truly driven to madness by demonic voices? Or was he a cold-blooded killer, seeking to evade responsibility for his crimes? Did the Lutz family truly experience the horrors they described, or were they victims of their own imaginations, their perceptions warped by the weight of the house's tragic past? The human mind is a fragile thing, easily influenced, susceptible to suggestion and the power of belief. Were the Lutz family, already vulnerable after the trauma of the DeFeo murders, simply projecting their own fears onto the house, their anxieties amplified by the media frenzy that surrounded their story? Or was there something more at play, a darkness that defied rational explanation, an evil that fed on their fear, growing stronger with each terrified gasp, each desperate prayer? The Amityville Horror, regardless of its veracity, serves as a chilling reminder of the fragility of our perceived reality. It speaks to our primal fear of the unknown, the darkness that lurks at the edges of our vision, the shadows that whisper our names when the lights are low. It reminds us that even in the safety of our homes, we are not immune to the forces of chaos and darkness that exist in the world, both within and without. Whether we choose to believe in the supernatural or dismiss it as the stuff of nightmares, the story of 112 Ocean Avenue continues to fascinate and terrify, its grip on our collective imagination as strong as ever. It stands as a stark reminder that some doors are best left unopened, some secrets best left buried, and some places forever marked by the darkness that resides within their walls. The Amityville Horror is more than just a haunted house story. It is a reflection of our deepest fears, our fascination with the unknown, and our enduring need to make sense of the darkness that lurks at the edges of our world. It is a story that will continue to haunt us long after the lights go out and the shadows begin to whisper.